Welcome to Council Meeting 4518. Can I ask you all to be upstanding? I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, of elders past, present and emerging.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good and as in your sight through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. This meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast live online. Members of the public are advised that their voice and image will form part of the live streaming of the council meeting, and the webcast archived and publicly available online. The attending of council meeting, whether a proponent or objector addressing the council or as an observer or an interested party member of the public, consent to their use of their image, voice and personal information. Made a little less important today because we don't have anyone outside of council in the gallery. There are no apologies from today. Declarations of interest. Councillors, any declarations of interest? If not, I will move to the confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4517 held 27 March 2023. Is there a motion? Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Councillor Sanderson, questions?
There's a few corrections to be made. I noticed Councillor Quinn has shown us voting on some of the early items before he arrived. So that'll affect the motion was carried unanimously on page 2 of the minutes. It will affect move item on the bottom of page 4 of the minutes. I think it's okay after that.
We'll have those changes made. Councillors, any other questions or corrections? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I will now move to a Merrill minute. Regarding Peter O'Meara, who has been awarded a papal honour. I'll read out the report. Local resident Peter O'Meara received a papal honour of knighthood from the Vatican, the Knights Commander's Cross of the Order of St Gregory the Great, from Pope Francis through Sydney's Archbishop Anthony Fisher OP. This is the 4th highest award that is presented by the Vatican. The papal honour was presented to Peter on 22nd of March 2023, surrounded by his family and friends. The award was presented in recognition of his extraordinary legacy as a faithful Catholic layman, his tireless promotion of the corporal works of mercy, and his lifetime of service to the Church and the wider community. As a recently retired Chief Executive Officer of Catholic Cemeteries and Crematoria, Peter's honour recognises more than a decade of his tireless advocacy in the corporate and political sphere, advocating for the Church's mission in ensuring everyone has a dignified faith-based funeral and burial and access to grief support at a reasonable cost. I will also mention that in a very local context, Peter has been a long-time stalwart of patronage to rugby union, and he was someone who participated and raised a lot of funds for the community facility that will be being built at Boronia Park. So certainly I think that this is a very deserved reward for Peter. Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Quinn.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I've known Peter for quite some years. He's a past parent at St Joseph's College as well. His son Liam attended St Joseph's College. Certainly during that time when Peter's son was at Joey's, he was a tremendous supporter and contributor to the Joey's community as well. I'm also aware he then went on to be the CEO of the Western Force Rugby, so he's been very much tied up in the world of rugby prior to returning to Sydney to take up the position of the Catholic Cemeteries Trust. I met with him on a number of occasions whilst I was mayor, investigating some local options for columbariums and other such things. And that's when I became aware of the complexity of the cemetery situation in Sydney, which is basically a real estate problem. And so Peter was very much educated me in that whole space, which I was very grateful for. I'm still keen to pursue some of his ideas locally when the appropriate time comes. The award that he has received is, as you put in the mayoral minute, a very significant award in the Catholic community, and I wholeheartedly congratulate him for receiving the award.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We will now move to item 3.1, which is a notice of motion for the expenditure for Fig Tree Park project. The motion is moved and seconded. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've moved this as a matter of transparency. There seems to be a lack of clarity in our community as to what the project funding and costs and its origin in terms of funding. I think it's important that council articulate clearly to its community what's required in terms of funding and what was sought at the initial stages. The project has got recent traction in the newspaper in relation to the funding sources, so it's important that we get clarity as to exactly what the original grant was, what the approved grant was, and a range of different actions which the council's taken since then.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers against the motion? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my perspective, I just think that this motion is a little bit redundant because I feel well briefed. I feel as though the council staff have presented with figures on a number of occasions to the councillors. For example, in the February meeting of council this year, the quarterly budget review statement indicates that the Scott Carver contract was valued at $69,200, which is well within the budget. To address recommendation 3C, the cost of the Scott Carver further detailed designs and revisions was costed at $18,000. I feel as though we've been well briefed. The community has access to all of this same information that I do. I mean, I work a full-time job in addition to the honour of being on council to represent the community, and it took me all of 10 minutes to find that information. So I feel comfortable and I feel as though we're in good hands in terms of budget to be able to deliver this project within the $4.7 million grant funding that's been afforded to us by the state government.
Thank you, councillor. I will also note that those are all public documents. Any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think it's worthwhile to have all this information in the one place where it is easily accessible. I don't think the community should need to search through dozens of or a number of documents to be able to ascertain what's going on. I mean, I can't say that I'm as clear on the precise figures as Councillor Preston claims she is. I do have some concerns. There is a lot of information, some misinformation floating around. It'd be nice if we can be open, transparent about this matter and put things in a position where the public can openly and easily see what's happening.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers? Councillor Crassoy.
Question, of course,
Yes.
through you, Mr. Mayor. If there is, and there is, misinformation floating around and people would like to avail themselves of the facts, through you, Mr. Mayor, where might they find information about the grant, the approved grant budget, and about the project, the stages of the project and the consultation that's been done to date, etc.?
Before I hand to the General Manager, there is a project page on the council website that details all of the timelines and where we're up to, along with the funding program. So I'll pass over to the General Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So councillors, as the Mayor alluded to, there is a project page on the website. I can't respond to what we mean by misinformation because I don't know what that misinformation is. What I can say is that we have a binding funding agreement with the state government. And like all councillors, we go through a very thorough acquittal process that we have to go back to the state government and report on the spending of that money on a regular basis. And obviously within that framework, we have to acquit that money with what it was given to us for. So that is what I would make comment on, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillors, Councillor Quinn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, look, I can't support this motion. I think it's all a bit too late, frankly. I note that this application was approved in May 2021 under the term of the previous council. And that would have been the time to me to be putting all the information out there if there was any concern about it and so on. We're well down the track now. People can get the information on request if they need it. So I just don't quite see the point now I sense it's trying to change a decision that council has made a long time ago, and I just don't see the point in that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any other speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Bergara.
Can I move that the motion be put?
You may. I will now put the motion that the motion be put. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I'll now put the motion that's in the paper. All those in favour?
Oh, sorry.
Against? That is lost. Now move to item 4.1, the election of Deputy Mayor. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the paper. I will need someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move the recommendation and an adjustment to number 1, being that the length of the term of appointment be until the September 2024 council election.
Yes. I'll just make sure that we get that absolutely correct and on the screen. Is that seconded, councillors? Councillor Prieston.
Just want to confirm these are the two independent surveys.
So an alternate recommendation has been
So if I can
moved and
assist with the
seconded.
wording, that
Yes.
the term of the that the length of the term for the appointment of the deputy mayor be until the September 2024 local government elections.
for the deputy mayor.
Be until the September 2024
Local government.
local government elections.
That now becomes recommendation number 1. And presumably, councillor, you're fine with 2 and 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yes. I am.
Can I suggest?
Sorry, councillors.
Want to do vote on each of the 3 resolutions? That would be my suggestion.
Councillors, I've just had a suggestion from the General Manager that we deal with each of the recommendations in turn, voting on them separately. So
I'm okay with that amendment, Mr. Mayor.
yes, as put. So I will put recommendation number 1 that the length of term for the deputy mayor be until September 2024 local government elections. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Number 2, that council confirm that the method of voting for election of deputy mayor can be open voting if more than 1 nomination is received. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, did we get a seconder for all of these?
That seconder was Councillor Prieston. Apologies. And number 3, that council will elect a deputy mayor. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll now hand over to the General Manager, who is will be acting as returning officer for the election of the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I have been in receipt of 2 nominations for the position of deputy mayor. One is for Councillor Sanderson and one is for Councillor Crassoy. I have ask Maria to witness these two nominations as a additional independent person, to which she has confirmed those nominations. As the returning officer, before I seek a show of hands as per the recommendation, can I confirm that Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Crassoy, you want to continue with the vote? Okay, so I will just ask for a show of hands for those supporting the nomination of Councillor Sanderson. So we have Councillor Williams and Councillor Sanderson, and I ask for a show of hands who councillors are supporting the nomination of Councillor Crassoy. So, Mr. Mayor, as the returning officer, based on those show of hands, Councillor Crassoy is elected as the Deputy Mayor until the remainder of the current council term. Congratulations, Councillor.
Congratulations, Councillor Crassoy. Look forward to working with you until September 2024. I'll now move to item 4.2, Telstra lease renewal 22 Alexandria Street, Hunters Hill, which is this building. Moved, Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Vergara. Beat you slightly, Councillor Priestman. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, I just, it's basically rolling over what's been the status quo, so I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Councillor. I have some questions, if I may. I did just notice in the comparables in the valuation report that they are slightly higher. Now, I was actually a little surprised that council didn't make more money out of the Telstra, the telecom tower that we have. But just on the comparables, did we actually press for a more substantial increase, or was that by agreement to Telstra based on the valuation report?
Through the general manager, we received the evaluation. We also then went back to Telstra. I, in essence, attempted to get it at least to the lower range of the. They also provided even further comparables, and the rentals of those other comparables were actually in fact lower than our offer. So, as commented in the council report, in essence, essentially Telstra has done two things. It's put in an average of 2.5% escalation for most of its renewals of license, and they've progressively gone through all of their expired telecom licenses and applied that as an average. And essentially due to the evolving technology, and also because of the lower density area that we have in our scope of reaching population growth, we are limited in what we are able to achieve, and essentially the valuation verifies that. So we did go back, but that was the extent of the offer.
Okay. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, look, I've just got a question. It's not actually directly about the lease arrangement, but I'm wondering if somehow we can express to Telstra concerns about the level of reception in the Northern Baronia Park area. I live in High Street and I can only get one bar of Telstra reception at best. I've had calls drop out on me regularly. So there seems to be a dead patch in that part of our LGA. I'm not sure if it's coming from what's on top of the council chamber or perhaps on top of the telephone exchange in John Street. But I'm wondering if we can also convey to Telstra concerns about the level of pickup reception in our local government area.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I share the points that you picked up on page 9 or 23 of our report. I didn't find in the report anywhere what the population that this tower serves, because all the others seem to be around 11 or 12,000 participants, and the prices vary significantly from 59,000 to 33,000 for those population ranges. So populations of rival in this. I was just wondering, I did read the report and I don't think I did find what, ours is, the census is 13,591, which is far above any of the other populations quoted here as a basis for the pricing. So I was just wondering what was the actual community number that this is priced on?
The director.
I'm actually trying to locate that population figure. Essentially, one of the most comparable area with a high density is Ryde Council. So obviously apartment dwellings and also the land code. So on receiving this valuation, I went back to the valuer again and asked for further commentary as well. And essentially that was the feedback that was provided. The range in the valuation, as you'll see, goes from 33 up until 59, and those achieving in that high range are those ones with a higher density populations where apartment developments. And so based on the telecoms facility, they're able to reach greater population. Then that's the justification of the argument that's been put from Telstra. But essentially Telstra as a general has been bringing down their licence fee expenses, and essentially from their perspective, they felt that those previous license agreements were actually too high income, and their consistent offer has been lower, and including the escalation rate, the market review rate.
I just was going to also perhaps speculate on the businesses in those areas as well, using the, because they'd also be using the Telstra services.
Yes.
So just from a, like, for example, Ryde and Lane Cove have a lot more business use, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Just speculating.
Councillors, is there any other questions? Yes, regarding the lease.
Yeah, no, regarding the lease, and I'm just advice, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps through the general manager or the director, what is the best way to approach Telstra on the issue that I raised?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, post this evening on the assumption that this report is passed, we will have to exchange correspondence with the leasing agent and Telstra to confirm that the lease has been renewed. And I'm more than happy to include within that correspondence to Telstra the concern that you've raised this evening.
Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, I can help on that matter, I think, because on page 21, page 7 of the report of the valuer, under the map, it says that the subject site situated within a 1 kilometre radius. So your area is not part of that. And that probably explains the population issue as well.
Understood, but therefore I wonder if I'm sitting in another 1 kilometre radius and it just needs to be tilted something or whatever.
It is it is a genuine concern. There's seems to also be a well in parts of the lower part of Gladesville as well, where you can almost never get any reception. So I think it's worth mentioning in the correspondence.
And my understanding too is that there's also transmission towers on top of the old telephone exchange in John Street, which are probably more relevant to my situation. So anyway, if we can just raise it with them, I'd appreciate it.
I will, Councillor Quinn.
Councillors, any other questions or debates? Right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with Councillor Williams voting against. I'll now move to item 4.3, quarterly budget review as at 31st March 2023. Is there a mover? Moved. Councillor Crassoy seconded. Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Some questions, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
On page 35, where it's got the movement table of income, I'm just wondering why the last item is a decrease, but it's talking about an increase. It's I just wonder if we get clarification as to how I would read that.
I'll get clarification through the director.
Essentially that's a net position. So the first stop point is forecast to receive 290,000 additional income from section 712. However, 3.76 million of the capital grant income that was originally intended to be recognised for this financial year from the various new capital asset programs new capital asset projects will need to now be moved to next financial year based on the accounting standard.
As I understand it, then the new accounting standard means that you need to account for those grant funding items in the year in which they're expended.
That's correct.
That's why it's moved.
That's correct.
Yeah. Councillor Prieston,
Can I ask a question?
you may.
To the director through you, Mr. Mayor. On page 41, the statement, I just wanted to know, in relation to the Bedlam Bay swim site, what have we spent that money on? Do you know?
Through the general manager. Yeah, it's-
Councillor Prieston, through you, Mr. Mayor, you're referring to the 560
Yeah.
number? Yep. I'll let Maria answer that, but
Yeah,
I
so.
think it's straightforward.
Yeah, so those, that essentially. It's the two, if you look above Bedlam Bay, the 290,000 is a positive figure, and that's the recognition of the income. But the 560, which is the negative income, means that the income will be removed from this financial year and will move to next financial year, assuming that we expend that money next financial year. So essentially, not much has been spent on Bedlam Bay.
But what have we spent money on in terms of Bedlam Bay thus far? Or you don't know?
Look, I'd have to take that as a question notice, and I'm not going to give a specific.
Councillors, any other questions? Right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.4, summary of council investments as at 31 March 2023. Is there a mover? Moved, Councillor Quinn. Seconded, Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not,
It's nice to see those interest rates are creeping up from when we last had.
Nice in this.
unless we have borrowings, luckily we have none of those. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.5, Henley Precinct Community Meeting Outcomes. Moved, Councillor Crassoy. Seconded, Councillor Prieston. Councillor Crassoy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the comprehensive report. And I was away when this meeting took place. I was at the Civic Risk Mutual Conference representing council. And so I couldn't attend the meeting, and I was really disappointed because I love these precinct style meetings where people get to sit around and scribble on paper and say stuff. And this is the most comprehensive reporting of one of those meetings that I've ever seen. So even though I wasn't there, I really feel like I got a good sense of, in fact, even who some of the people were in the room. So thank you for that. And I'm hoping that because there has been this, A, great meeting, and B, a really good follow-up report, everyone who's at it will, I imagine, receive these minutes, that the next steps will flow. Because often we've had these precinct meetings in the past and we walk out full of beans and then all sorts of other stuff gets in the way and it doesn't end up happening. So hopefully off the back of this, we'll see some good decisions and the recommendation, in fact, to develop a master plan project scope brief and to allocate some decent dosh towards it, I think is a really positive thing for our council. So I thank the reporting officer and the person who's been driving this so well, and the general manager. And my apologies again for not being able to attend.
Thank you, councillor. I might just also add that follow-up has already occurred. Meeting minutes have already been distributed even to council representatives who were in attendance, and I would echo your thanks to the director who put this report together. And it's the sort of follow-up that we need following what was, quite frankly, one of the best public meetings that I've been to in a very long time. So sorry you couldn't come, but you're off representing council elsewhere. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the officer for a very thorough report, and I agree it was an excellent evening, and I enjoyed the interaction and the dialogue that took place, and it was good intended, and a lot of, as we can see in the report from the officer, a lot of really useful information flowed from it. My concern is that we're allocating funds for next year's budget, a very significant amount, without knowing the scope or timeframe of the funding, and we haven't considered the budget in full. So I'd be happy to flag it as being something we need to consider, but to actually allocate it to the budget, I think, is premature. I'd also like to comment on the fact that plans of management are not the solution. We can see that the plan of management for Gladesville has now been going on for 7 years. Both yourself and I moved that motion back at the start of the previous council. So to me, from the feeling at that community meeting, was they want us to do something, not to give a large amount of money to a consultant to borrow our watch to tell us the time, because the community's told us what the key issues are. The staff members prioritise them. For 125,000, we could probably do a lot to address these issues. In terms of a master plan for the area, I don't know how long that's going to take, what sort of scope it's going to have. Is it just going to tell us what we already know? So I think it needs a bit more work before we make a decision on it. And I'd probably like to see the community's reaction to a time frame under a plan of management process, because I fear it might be years before we get to spend any money on providing solutions.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers for? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended this community meeting and really had the best time. I didn't participate in the discussion, but I observed. And well done to Annie. I'd just like to echo everyone's sentiment around your coordination of this, but also the reporting of it. I think when I was leaving, I had a number of residents come up to me and give nothing but positive feedback. Some even said that it was the best community meeting that they'd ever attended. I just wanted to note a few things. There seemed to be a bit of fear amongst the group on the night that council was looking to sell the land that houses the precinct. And this was very well kind of dealt with by you and your team, Annie, because I felt as though you eloquently dispelled any misconceptions that that was the case, given that it's Crown land. So I just note that where that is written in this report, I note that Annie's kind of scanned in the butcher's paper with the residents' ideas. Some of them do say don't sell, and that is not happening, which Annie conveyed very well on the night. I also think that just to touch on what Councillor Williams said, I think that this is the first step in the process. I understand that some work was done on this in the last term of council or the one prior, but I really think that this is a bit of a refresh. We've updated the idea for a master plan now, and now we really need to take this feedback and use, you know, the transparency and the relationship that council's just established now with the community and rejig everything and, you know, start from here, taking into account, of course, the work that was done previously. But I think we've got momentum now, and I think it's at the forefront of the community's mind. So I can imagine that the community will also press council on this plan of management. But yeah, I do look forward to getting kind of an indication from the council staff as to when we might get things into gear with this project, because I think it will be really good for the community. I think they're looking forward to it on the back of that meeting. So yeah.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers against? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I was absolutely delighted with the meeting, and I'm very happy with the report. I'm also very pleased that you know, council has progressed now that we no longer fear meetings like this. And at a stage, we did seem to fear meetings like this. And I can recall an acting general manager saying to me, well, what are we going to do with a meeting like this? We had the meeting and it was absolutely outstanding. And that started with the issues to do with the upgrade of load for reserve. It was my amendment to a motion that put the first of these in place. And this is the way we should have been working for far longer. One of the problems we have in Henley is that we have a plan of management that was created without a community advisory group, and that was a flaw. If we'd had that, we could have had a far better plan of management, and I don't think we'd even be talking about master plans. I share Councillor Williams' concerns that of spending 125,000 consultants when I think we already have a pretty good idea what people there want. I think they want action, not more expense on consultants.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Preston, a question?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Can I ask a question to the General Manager,
You may.
through you, Mr. Mayor? Mitchell, I just wanted to know, do you think that we might spend, you know, less than the budgeted amount, firstly? As in, is that a possibility? And secondly, do you think that the outcome that we would get to as a council would be substantially of a lesser quality if we weren't to be allocating this amount of money in the next year's budget for this plan of management?
Thanks through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question. Just a couple of points. So, first of all, I think everything that's been said here is incredibly valid. I thought it was an amazing meeting, but the next step in terms of continuing that momentum is that you can clearly see by all the recommendations and suggestions that were put forward by the community that it now needs to be harnessed into a proper plan. And it's very important that we just don't go and start doing things in a bits and pieces way. It actually has to have cohesion and continuity over a long term. And I think in the plan of management case, comments are really valid. But what's really challenging here too is that, and let's not underestimate this, that I think one of the big challenges here is that how do we connect those two sites? Because we've got Henley and we've got Gladesville Reserve, and in my view, there's a missed opportunity there. And that requires people with high level expertise to bring that all together. To answer your question, Councillor Preison, and go to some of the comments that Councillor Williams made, is that we would issue a very high level and comprehensive scope through a request for tender process that says, this is what we need you to do. Now, my view would be that we would not spend that amount of money, but you need to have it there. But now I want to make the most important point. The strength and ability for us to go to the state and federal government to ask for grant money to actually execute the plan is far more powerful and far more greater leverage for our capacity to get such money approved if we can clearly demonstrate it, that we've gone through the process of a planning document. I don't mean a planning document as in an approval document, but a master plan, that we've attached business cases to that plan, et cetera, rather than we have a few good ideas, can you give us some money? And that's two very different cases in terms of our applications for future grant funding. And my concern is that if we don't go to the step of proper master planning those and bringing those two areas together, and I say this with the greatest respect, that we run a real risk that we lose that momentum and they just become a big talk fest. So we've gathered everybody together, but haven't actually actioned anything. And I think by doing a proper plan with a consultant, that it gives us a greater chance to attract that grant funding, and it clearly demonstrates to the community that we are serious about taking this forward.
Thank you. Councillor.
And Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager, I'm assuming also the reason for this is that the capacity to do this internally, in terms of, that's a big job.
Sure.
And we can't just suddenly divert a current staff member to be taking on a major project like this, because that means they're not doing their other core business in the daily operations of the council. So I'm assuming that's a big piece of it as well.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, 100% right, Councillor Quinn. And I think also that the development of a plan that I would expect back to the level that I would expect back in terms of the standard of that plan, that requires a very specific skill set and specialised expertise above and beyond our internal staff.
Thank you, General Manager. Any other speakers for the motion? Against? Right reply. Councillor Crasoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks everyone for your contributions, and I value them because you were there. So I was lamenting the wasteland that the Henley Bowling Club was since I moved to Hunters Hill only 20 years ago. So I know I'm still a newbie, but I watched it closely for a long time, and I actually remember calling Annie Goodman at the time and saying, "What the heck is going on at Priory and at Henley Bowling Club? And if we're not careful, they're just going to go to rack and ruin, and we're going to lose them. And what an opportunity they are for our suburb." And I didn't know at the time that one day I would run for council and that I'd be here with the opportunity to participate in seeing the future of those sites. When I did get onto council, it was one of my early fires that I took to the General Manager at the time, Barry Smith. And he had some concerns about us doing anything to the property because it is on Crown land. And so we can't just sell it, as we all know, but well, not without some work. And yet, when Lisa Miss Campbell came on the council, she was open to some suggestions, and they did throw a few cans of paint in there and then flung it around quite nicely. They fixed the concrete cancer in the balconies. We replaced the roof. We enabled the Happy Hens to do good work down there and supported them in their work as they were supported with federal and state grant funding. And we have begun to maximise the use of the space. So no one in the community can say that nothing has happened down at Henley, certainly not in the last 5 years, but gradually, sure. Because as they say, from little things, big things grow. And I know that's cheesy, but they can grow too slowly. And sometimes you've got to throw a bit of money at a thing to make a bit of money. And I think that there's an opportunity here for council to really deliver some social benefit to our community. We have the return and earn down there. In my opinion, it's in the wrong spot, and I believe that's a lot of people's opinion. And when you have a master plan, you can allow for all of that. So you can continue to deliver. Doing a master plan doesn't mean that we won't continue to deliver in increments for our community. Whether it needs a governing body down there in its own right, perhaps that's another discussion for a future precinct meeting. And that was something that was raised at the previous precinct meeting on the community consultation panel that I attended and Councillor Sanderson attended for the previous plan of management for that area. So I'm not quite sure what you meant by there was no consultation group, because there was, and there was a consultant at it. But anyway, I waffle because I'm excited. I think there's so much opportunity here. Other cities do this really well. In Melbourne, if you care to go and Google Ceres, CERES, you will see their evolution over I think it was a dump or a derelict site that the various community groups got together and worked with the state and local government and federal government, and is now an exemplar of environmental education, and particularly on solar panels and in schools. So who knows what can grow down there. And if we have a plan, I feel like it will make our community feel safe, because they won't be second guessing what might be in the pipes for it, because there'll be a good plan that we can all work towards. So I'm all for it. And again, congratulations, and thank you, Annie, for your tireless support for our community. Done.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I now move to item 4.6, notification of public exhibition local approvals policy. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. Councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sanderson, I believe you sent through some amendments.
Sent through an amendment, quite simple. I believe you've got that electronic.
Would you like to move your amendment?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Sanderson, just while we're getting the amendment up, I just would like to tell councillors as well that if you do have any questions, we actually do have the officer on the line as well.
Thank you. Yes, as you can see now, the amendment is that I've inserted the words "for exhibition" in one, which is what was understood, I expect anyway. Then added comma after the attachment 1 with the amendment to Appendix 1, 3.5 fees and charges. And at point A, it currently reads an application for Category 1 food van does not have an associated fee. I propose to delete does not have an associated fee and replace it with must be accompanied by the fee in council schedule of fees and charges.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Is that seconded? Councillor Crassoy, seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seconded with a question through you, Mr. Mayor. Does this have to go on exhibition? Was that just an oversight?
So, so first of all, Mr. Mayor, can I just can I point out that recommendation 2 actually says that it is placed on public exhibition. And perhaps,
Yes.
yeah, so it's already, so in the amendment where we're saying on exhibition, it's actually stated in the original recommendation. Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, could we give the opportunity for the officer to?
That's probably a good.
Can I assume that you are on the line, Jad?
Perhaps not.
Yeah, he's probably just on mute. Jad, can you hear us?
Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, hello.
Yes. Have you heard that conversation among the councillors just in the last couple of minutes?
Briefly, I think there's a little bit of a delay.
That's okay. So, Councillor Crasswell, would you like to ask that question again? Because Jad's the best person to answer that.
Thanks, General Manager.
Thank you.
Jad, Councillor Sanderson has proposed an amendment. Has Jad seen that?
Jad, have you seen the amendment that was proposed by Councillor Sanderson that was on the screen?
I have, yes.
Yes.
So it's essentially to charge an application fee to people wanting to bring vans into the suburb. And just that he's suggested that we add the word and that we exhibit it, but the General Manager's just pointed out that that's already mentioned at part 2 and asked if you had anything to say.
No, the policy must be put on exhibition prior to adoption, and that's specified in the Local Government Act. The period for exhibition and the period for notification and submissions are both specified in the Act.
Whilst you're also on the line, Jad, I just wonder whether it is the grandfathering of a former policy, but in part 3 of the local approvals policy, item 3.8, sale of liquor, no mobile food vending vehicle is permitted to utilise a liquor licence to sell alcohol to the public. I am aware that in other LGAs, alcohol is permitted to be sold out of food trucks or vans. Is there a reason that that is the position put in the paper, or is that just something that has always been the case in Hunters Hill?
It has been grandfathered in from the previously adopted policy.
Because I personally, and I'm just speaking to the councillors now, I wouldn't have a problem with food trucks being able to provide, a bottle of beer with, taco or fish and chips or whatever it is, as long as they are doing so in within the parameters of the RSA rules. Councillor Prieston.
Can I ask a question, please, to Jad? And also, can I foreshadow an amendment to the amended motion?
If the amended motion is amended, yes, but we can probably deal with that as a separate amendment when the time comes, if need be, if we want to make it less complicated a situation. But you have a question of the officer?
Yeah, I do. Jad, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to know 2.4, category 2, sorry, page 103 of the business paper. It says that food trucks are not permitted to trade within 200 metres of a fixed and permanent food outlet. But I wondered if there was an intricacy to this that I'm not seeing in the report. Because, for example, when we had Mookabulla at the town hall precinct and we had some food stalls near the Sunroom Cafe, I know that they're probably not food trucks, but is this kind of specific to a truck that has wheels and stuff? That's like a truck rather than a stall?
Yes, Councillor, so the policy applies to all food trucks within the LGA that are operating. It excludes any council operated or run events. So, for example, food stalls in a park or food stalls at the council chambers. If it's at an off-council operated event, the policy does not apply under the exceptions.
Okay, so do you think that we could potentially, hypothetically, amend this to say that if there was pre-approval from council?
Councillor,
Or is-
the intention, I guess, to that provision was that you don't want food trucks from out of area coming and parking out of Chelso's, for example, or out front of an existing local business and detracting or taking customers away from a local business.
So when we had the burger truck outside Garibaldi.
That
for
would
the
have been
night
in contravention of the
Or because it was a
Isn't there
council.
somewhere in here that says
run
there's a
event.
discretion in the application process that discretion can be.
probably a
further?
question of Jad. Is there a discretion for council to allow for food trucks to be within 200 metres of a local retailer if council gives permission?
Well, not just
Mr. Mayor, yes,
on the whole.
there is a exemption.
Sorry, councillors, can we
of,
just listen to Jad?
Yeah.
Sorry, go
yes,
ahead, Jad.
Thank you. There's an exemption under 1A that exempts all of the trading and location conditions if it's at a council approved or council operated event. And then there is also a discretionary approval that is given to council's director of town planning to provide an approval if it is in accordance with the legislation and the intent of the policy.
Thank you, Jad. Thank
And
you.
that applies to then all the conditions, including the time frame limits and stuff. Okay, cool.
Councillors, we have a motion on the floor. We've had an amendment moved and seconded.
Sorry,
Councillor
Mayor, a
Quinn.
question, if I may, I'm just interested to hear the feedback from the officer about the suggested amendment to clause A. In other words, charging for those category 1 food vans. Does the officer see any issue with that? Not considered it's just been grandfathered.
That was a consequences of the last council. Jad, would you like to address that?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, the fees have been grandfathered, or the exemption for fees have been grandfathered in from the previous councillor policy. There is no amendment to this to alter the fees and charges. If we were to, or if council were in mind to alter that, there would have to be a modification to the schedule of fees and charges as well.
Okay. So I'm not hearing any problem with that, and I'm all for trying to get revenue for council. So I'm not hearing any problem for that. So if I could suggest Councillor Sanderson might wish to add to his amendment for A, that the changes be made to the council fees. And, well, you've done that already anyway.
Oh,
Be accompanied by the fee. Yeah. We make appropriate changes to the fees and charges.
Councillors, I might just get the amendment pulled up, and it's sounding very much like the amendment might be rolled into the motion if the mover and seconder are okay with that. Councillor Quinn, are you comfortable with the motion as the amendment as proposed to become the motion?
Yes, I think it's unnecessary for the for exhibition in clause 1 because it's in clause 2, but certainly the change I would support for category 1 food vans.
For simplicity, are we able to? Are we comfortable with move for exhibition, even though it will go on exhibition?
I would prefer to leave it in because it makes it.
Councillor
clearer
Quinn, are
what
you
we're
happy to
actually
leave that in?
I'm not going to.
Okay. Is the seconder happy with the yes? Was it? Yes, seconder. Yep. Well, that will become the motion now. So if we can just.
So, Mr. Mayor, given we are about to go on public exhibition, can we just check with the officer that there's no issues of us contravening anything that we're required to do before we go on public exhibition by those amendments?
I believe that was clarified
I'm fine with it,
just
but
then, but if for abundance of doubt, the abundance of clarity, I should say, to not have any doubt, Jad, could you just address the General Manager's question?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, the proposed amendments would not contravene any part of the Local Government Act in regard to this.
Councillors, there is now a amended motion adopted by the mover and the seconder on the floor. We're back into debate. Councillor Williams.
While we've got the staff member there, Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering on page 107, it was a detailed thing, but it may be confusing when we try to implement it. There's 3 diagrams. In those, there seems to be one constant, which is the 2 metre setback from the street. Does this preclude if there's a large area between the venue and the street for having multiple tables, as long as you're still providing that 2 metres? So it tends to imply here that you can only have one string of tables. I was just wondering if there's any prohibition.
Jad, if you're still on the line, if you'd like to address that.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, the 2 metre rule is from the curb to the edge of the tables. That is a guideline put forward by the Road and Maritime Services for pedestrian safety and road users. If they were to have multiple tables, that would not, for example, the tables were stacked back towards the possible wall line, that would not be in contravention of the proposal. It would have to be an extraordinarily wide footpath to have that, for example, 7 metres though.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Councillor Quinn.
And Mr. Mayor, I note in the assessment criteria 2.1D, it says at least 2 metres.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I note all that, but I still think for clarity in the documentation, just having those 3 diagrams, I think we need a 4th one that gives an option for very wide footpath situations. Otherwise, people think they'll look at it and they'll think they can only do one road, regardless of the clarity and artery.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd hope that the staff would be able to walk applicants through that process, but we'll move back into debate. Councillors, any other speak? Councillor Prieston, given that the amended motion is the amendment has become the motion, you had a potential foreshadowed motion, which could be an amendment now.
Well done.
An amendment to the
the current
new
motion,
which is the amendment.
No, the motion that's on the floor, which is Councillor Sanderson's suggestions, which is now become the motion because it's been accepted by the mover and seconder. You had a proposed amendment or foreshadowed motion that could also form an amendment.
Yes, thank you. I don't know where the best place to put it, but just on the back of your suggestion around enabling the service of alcohol through a food truck, provided it's in compliance with other, legislation governing RSA and whatnot. I mean, I think you could probably put it in the.
If I could assist, Councillor, you could probably, if we could pull them.
Put it in 2.1 first and foremost. So maybe
I think you'd have to just make another point in the motion itself that item 2 points.
So a new
item 3.8 be amended. Sorry, that's the motion.
Yep, number 2.
Yeah, a new number 2.
Yeah.
Well, actually, would it be a new 1C? Yeah, a new 1C to say that category 2 food trucks, capital F, capital T, be permitted.
Delete 3.8.
Okay.
That
clause 3.8 of the local approvals policy be omitted to allow for the responsible service of alcohol. Omitted.
Appendix. Yeah.
Omitted with an O. To allow for the responsible service of alcohol through mobile food vending vehicles with capitals. and that the
No, it is in the appendix, so it's appendix 3.8, not clause 3. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm just.
is it appendix?
Can we also,
Oh, yes,
councillor?
but also at 3.8 where it says sale of liquor.
That's in the appendix.
No.
Yeah.
That's what's being amended, the following amendments to appendix 1.
Okay.
Yep.
'Cause
Can I just ask, so do we remove that category 2 food trucks and just have appendix 3.8? Is that was the intention was?
Clause.
Clause 3 of appendix 1, right?
Clause,
And
too many lawyers in this room.
Sorry.
That clause 3 of appendix 1.
0.8, yeah.
Yeah. Clause 3. Point 8.
8, and before that, we delete that category 2 food trucks. That's
Yeah.
yes.
Just start from that clause 3.8. Yeah.
Yes.
That works.
Again, given that the relevant staff member, Mr. Davis, is on the line, I just would like to ask if there is anything in the proposed amendment that would be contrary to the Act in any way, shape, or form.
Mr. Mayor, there's nothing that would be contrary to the Act as to what's proposed.
Thank you. Councillor, are you comfortable with that proposed amendment?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Quinn, are you comfortable with adding that to the motion? Well, that becomes the motion without amendment. That's making it my job a lot easier. So that becomes the motion. I will read the motion now for clarity because we've gone through a couple of amendments. So if we could just pull it up again.
Mr. Mayor, just while it's being pulled back
Yes.
up, I just in the amendment. Point 1 says in appendix 3.5.
Appendix 1.
Appendix 1, 3.5.
But we might not need
Fees and charges needs to go into
A
and B.
Are you okay with that?
Like it can't be in point 1 anymore
Yeah.
because now we have
We're dealing
what
with
I'm saying?
different clauses within it.
so where it says 3.5 fees and charges.
Why don't we make C2 and then renumber?
Councillors, I've got to keep a little bit of order in the room.
You see why I'm asking that?
That's the legibility point. It's so that
So if it were to be dropped into the beginning of A and B.
just pass it
If that got dropped into,
no, it just delete. So it will say endorse the policy with the following amendments to appendix 1 semicolon, and then it will say that clause 3.5
that
be
clause,
amended to
that clause 3.5 be amended to.
no, that should be in
under
subclause A.
I want to drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yay.
That clause 3.5 fees and charges be amended so that an application.
Yeah.
And then put where you've got B,
Yeah.
tack it on the end of A.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
mimic it for subclause B. So
Okay,
that
I'm with
clause
you now.
3.5.
All right, let's just pull a little bit of order back into the room.
This can be part of my amendment.
That's fine. Okay. Is the mover and the seconder comfortable with that motion as put? I'll read the proposed motion that number 1, you just roll up a little bit. Sorry, that council number 1 endorse the draft local approvals policy attached to this report for exhibition, see attachment 1, with the following amendment to appendix 1.
I should say amendments.
Amendments to appendix 1, that that clause 3.5 fees and charges be amended so that an application for a category 1 food van must be accompanied by a fee in council's schedule of fees and charges. That B, the clause 3.5 fees and charges be amended so that An application for a category 2 food truck must be accompanied by a fee on council's scheduled fees and charges. That's C. That clause 3.8 of appendix 1 of the local approval policy be omitted to allow for the responsible service of alcohol through mobile food vending vehicles.
I'm not happy with it, Mr. Mayor.
What part are you not happy with?
Well, B is already in the policy.
It's now redundant.
Exactly.
Okay, so no, sorry, not C, not C. Let's just go up. Let's delete part B if councillors are all comfortable. Mover and seconder, are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Yes?
And at the end of A, it should be a semicolon and an and.
Expect a bill by the end of this from
So
me.
B is deleted.
And B gets deleted in its entirety. That's 2. Place the endorsed draft local approvals policy on public exhibition for a period of not less than 28 days, inviting submissions from the public for a period of not less than 43 days from which the draft local approvals policy is placed on public exhibition. That 3, receive a further report on the draft local approvals policy, which includes consideration of any submissions made within the timeline allowed prior to formal adoption. Is the mover happy with that? Is the seconder happy with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, are there any other proposed amendments or inclusions? If not, any more debate? Any speakers for, against? Right of reply, councillor Quinn. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll now move to item 4.7, media policy for adoption, page 113. Is there a mover of the motion? Moved Councillor Crassall and seconded. Councillor Vergara, is there any discussion? Councillor Crassall, would you like to speak to the motion at all?
I'll wait.
Councillor Williams speaking against.
No, I've got questions.
Okay, questions?
So I'm quite happy to hear the four first.
I think Councillor Crassall has already passed over her capacity. Yep.
I was just wondering why council on page 113 doesn't use its local newspaper anymore for informing its community during exhibition. And secondly, there's a fairly concise email attached from somebody that put a submission in, raised the issue of social media and why we haven't included in this policy some guidance in relation to social media, considering the changes that have occurred and particularly the responsibility on the person that owns the site, but what is the content on it. So
thank you, councillor. I believe that we have the director on Zoom.
Well, no, we have the officer who had the report.
Oh,
So,
sorry,
Jackie,
Jackie. I
you want to come up here, Jackie?
thought you were on Zoom for some
Sorry.
reason, but you're welcome to come up and answer the councillor's questions.
Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to social media, statement report, council's adopted a separate social media policy, which is based on the OLG model policy. So the matters around social media are covered in that policy, which has been adopted by council last year. And in regards to our local paper, we do frequently use the local paper to publicise issues, events and so on that council holds. So that's through a range of methods. It might be through the mayor's column, through articles, through event listings or advertisements.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillor Williams, any other questions?
no, Mr. Mayor.
Just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Williams, constantly, normally on page 4 or 6 of the TWT, we run advertisements on a very regular basis particularly around development applications.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Vergara?
I don't have to do this, but social media is not used in the proposed policy anywhere other than in the definition. The policy doesn't address the potential liability for defamation on social media.
Is that a question? Is that a question to the director?
So it's going as said again with this media policy, it's based on the OLG model. But if council wishes to take that out, then that's a matter for council to determine, and we can action that based on the resolution.
Councillor Preston.
I just have a question for the general manager or the director. I'm not quite sure yet. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Where there's a situation which probably wouldn't regularly arise, where a councillor isn't directly engaging with the media, i.e., that councillor isn't being interviewed or verbally expressing a view, but is expressing a view by association, i.e., where there might be, for example, an interview occurring and a councillor appearing in the background of, say, a protest or the like. How would we address that in terms of this policy? Because, you know, in specie, that is providing or indicating a view on a council matter, but just not directly, if I'm being clear. So would that councillor still be subject under this policy to, for example, seeking information and guidance from the general manager or media coordinator where appropriate before providing comment? I wonder if we should be making this broader, considering the influence that the media has more broadly than just, you know, a councillor making direct comment these days.
General manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, councillor. I'll let Jackie address that firstly, then I will make another comment.
So I'd say in regards to the policy, as it states in the policy, councillors can comment in the public sphere, but as stated in the policy, there is an obligation to state that that is their personal view if they're not representing.
Yeah, so I guess my follow-up question, Jackie, would be, in an event where, if you get what I'm saying, you're not providing direct comment, how would you indicate that it's a personal view and not the council's view that you're supporting by association?
I have seen past examples. For example, councillors might write opinion pieces to local paper and they literally will state in that article, this is my own personal view and not the view of Huntsville Council. So that's one way.
I would suggest that that's a direct comment though.
Yeah, I guess all I can, as the officer, we provide the policies to you as councillors to endorse, and then our obligation is to act based on those policies. So I guess it's really a matter for councillors in your civic duty to conduct yourselves in the public arena in line with those policies. I guess I don't feel as an officer it's my place to pass the judgment on how councillors.
Thank you,
I'm sorry, just to clarify, you answered well, but I just wanted to know if you had an idea as to how we could incorporate into this draft policy to cater for that different scenario, which is not the direct comment.
Councillor Priest, I would imagine in that circumstance it would probably fall under a code of conduct issue to be dealt with the Office of Local Government, not to be dealt with by our internal media policy. So I would suggest the best arbiter of that situation would probably be the OLG.
But I'd suggest also, Mr. Mayor, that it's by association is actually softer than someone articulating that they are speaking personally. I personally wouldn't share that view, and I think it's a bit of a sledgehammer to break a nut, shall we say? So, and I think it's appropriate for councillors to express a view as long as they make it clear that it is a personal view. But if it's just appearing in a photo, well, people might interpret it that as they will. But
fair enough, councillor. Councillors, any other questions of the director or the general manager? If not, thank you, Jackie. Any other speakers for the policy? Against the policy? Right of reply, councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, everyone, for your that was really interesting, actually. I thought this was just going to be a kind of yep, thanks for your work kind of thing. But you've just raised some interesting questions. And by raising the questions, you make everyone aware that they are possible questions. And certainly in our code of conduct, we are asked to consider perception as much as anything in the decisions that we make. But if I want to appear at a climate march or a Save the Whales march, and someone says that must be Hunners Hill Council's point of view, it would be very quickly addressed through our own channels that is or isn't the case. And as the Mayor said, I think it would fall to the Office of Local Government, but also just our discretion as councillors. This is to guide us and to give us something to show the community when they ask these questions. And it's good to have these policies in place. And thank you for reviewing it and tightening it up.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy.
Except that Councillor Vigara makes a good point. And would it change anything, as it's been on community exhibition, would it change anything for us to just take that, because it's literally in definitions?
It's not used.
There's a definition there, social media, and you could see how the person who made the submission made it, because here it says social media, but then it.
Councillors, are we comfortable to remove the term social media from this policy, given there is a separate policy that deals with social media?
Should we vote?
We can deal with it as an amendment, but the issue being that the debate's been had and the right of reply has also just been made. Councillor Williams.
I think we're in a very casual mode. It might be more simple rather than remove it, because people still ask the question, but to qualify it in the document saying there is a separate policy. Because
I'm comfortable with that. Councillors, we're comfortable with that? Yes. Yes. Councillors, we're going to have to, as the mover of the motion, you'll have to amend the motion to reflect that sentiment, and it has to be agreed to by the seconder. So if we could just pull the motion up. Oh, it's already up.
Propose an amendment, Mr. Mayor, that at number 2, the report, the
Policy.
document,
Media policy.
media policy document directs social media inquiries to the appropriate policy. No, to something.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Thank you. Sorry. That the document clarifies the availability or the existence of a separate social media policy.
The existence, sorry. Remove availability and just put existence.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I suggest respectfully, Councillor Crassoy, that you actually use the word notes. or confirms rather than clarifies?
The document notes the existence of council's separate social media policy.
Second word policy might be better in the document.
The policy notes the existence of council.
Like we're going to have to then. Sorry,
No, we just.
Sorry. I've got to just Councillor Preston, I've got a question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So the general manager, wouldn't we then have to define social media policy in the document?
We already have the social media.
No, we don't. We have a definition for social media, which means online.
No. We have a separate adopted social media policy.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's not defined in this document, so we can't then be referring to it if it's undefined.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
It'll just create more confusion, and then we still have this issue, which is an unused defined term. So can I propose an amendment?
We're getting into a little bit of a
Should just amend this document just to remove the definition.
Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And that definitions include.
Is that a separate dot point? Yep. Definitions include
No, and just and.
and,
Sorry.
so just point two.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that definitions include social media policy.
The second, comfortable with that? Councillors, are we comfortable with the amended motion? I will put it out there.
Argument of the lawyers.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect, but I think it'll get it done. Any other, I will say any other clarifications or comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Councillors, we now move to item 4.8, councillor and staff interaction policy for adoption, page 124. Councillor Quinn moved, seconded Councillor Crassoy.
If I may.
Councillor.
So this is quite clear about councillors. I wonder if it needs also some direction to committee members as well, so, which I assume would be the same.
Mm.
the same.
General Manager?
Or committee members have to go through the councillor chair of the committee that they're on.
Mhm.
Because I know we've had some instances of committee members that are directly contacting council officers.
Yes. General Manager.
So my general, through you, Mr. Mayor, my general comment, councillors, would be for consistency that members of committees of council, in my view, that the appropriate process that they should, if they want to raise an issue, that they should direct that through the chair of the respective committee or during general business of the meeting, not be contacting staff members directly, which has been occurring.
Yes. So is this the place to make that statement? Because I, as chair of a couple of committees, I would raise that issue at future committee meetings so that everyone in the committee is clear on the process. So it needs to be in a document somewhere.
Well, Councillor Quinn, it's obviously your prerogative whether you wish to include that. If you're asking for my opinion, I don't see any downside in including that as a second part of the recommendation.
So,
Councillor Quinn, are you proposing an amended motion as to the one in the business paper? Can I just I'll just hold on one moment. I'll pull up the recommendation as scripted, and we'll hash it out again. Councillor Quinn.
Let's just say that chair. So number two. That council. Sorry, number two. Sorry, no, we've got that council at the start, and then number two starts. Requests chairs of all committees to advise committee members.
Committees of council.
Yes.
Sorry, could we just say committees of council?
So requests chairs of all committees of council to advise all committee members of this policy, and that all inquiries or all matters in regard to committee work be referred in the first instance through the chair of the committee. And not to, I'll be explicit about it, and not to council staff.
Is that it, councillor?
Yeah.
Seconder, councillor
Maybe if someone
Crassoy?
wants to massage
Yes,
that.
councillor Crassoy, are you comfortable?
Mr Mayor, I'm comfortable with it, but I just have a question. Does this mean it would have to go back on public exhibition?
I don't believe
And
so, but I'll get clarification on
Is it
that.
not something that could actually go through? I'm just looking at the terms of reference for the committees, and would that not be something that should?
Councillor Crassoy, I'll defer to the general manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So it would be my view that it doesn't have to go back out on public exhibition, but an alternative way, and I'm not seeking a view either way. The alternative is to just raise it at each committee meeting.
Yeah.
That's the alternative. It's up to you whether you want to be that explicit within a recommendation. And you could look at making amendments to the terms of reference. That's it.
Councillor Quinn.
I think the way we've worded this is it's separate from the policy.
Mm.
So we're just saying, there's the policy, number one, we're adopting it. Number two, the council is requesting all the chairs to.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank
It's
you.
not actually in the policy.
Yes, thank you, councillor.
Thanks.
Councillor, councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, that's
No.
not.
Any other speakers against the motion? For the motion? Right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. I now move to item 4.9, fraud and corruption prevention policy 2023. Moved councillor Crassoy, seconded councillor Williams. Any discussion?
But just-
Councillor Crassoy.
Just to say, Mr Mayor, that Civic Risk Mutual, our insurance mutual, are actually holding a seminar and workshop on exactly this on the 2nd of May, and it might be informative to council to send the appropriate officer along to that workshop. And
Good
thank you for the
suggestion,
report.
councillor. I'm sure the general manager will oblige. Councillors, any other discussion? For, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. I now move to item 4.10, managing conflicts of interest for council related development. Councillor Quinn moved, seconded councillor Prieston. Any discussion? For, against? Councillor Williams speaking.
Against. Mr. Mayor.
Against.
That is the move I want to speak.
Councillor
I know, I'm
Quinn,
happy to wait for-
comfortable? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think in 7.2, it's on page 160. Doesn't provide enough transparency for our community on projects that we're conducting. I think we should be totally open and transparent with our community, and when we're doing a project or doing changing playgrounds, or we're doing changes to put toilets in reserves, etc., we shouldn't rely on council's ability to have exemptions. It should engage with its community and provide transparency, so that everybody knows what is being proposed and has a chance to talk about it. In 7.2, there's quite a few things there that basically should be put out to the community for consideration. So I don't support it in its current form.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any other speakers for the policy? Councillor
Just
Sanderson.
a question.
Question.
What the recommendation, because we seem to have, as the paper's laid out, we seem to have a policy without a recommendation
It's
to.
at the end of it. It's a
Is it?
receiving note.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry, I missed that. Different word.
Councillors, any other speakers for, against? If not, rather reply, councillor Quinn. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Moving to item 4.11, development applications determined by the local planning panel in March 2023. Is there a mover? Moved, councillor Priest.
With a question.
With a question? Yes, seconded, councillor Quinn. Councillor Priest.
Thank you. To the reporting officer through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered, with this first DA number 0178, it's curious to me that the development consent as contained in Schedule 2 shall not operate until the matters in Schedule 1 have been satisfied. But I just wanted to know, is are the proposed developments in Schedule 2 contradictory to 1 or 2 of Schedule 1? Like, if they have to do all this paint work, but then they're like knocking it down in Schedule 2, it just seems like a weird request, but if there's more context that you can provide, that'd be good.
Mr. Councillor, basically, yeah, I mean, the schedule number 1 is the deferred commencement, which we need to, the panel imposed certain conditions for them to satisfy prior to them getting their full consent. So this is a partial consent under the schedule, number 1. So they need to satisfy those conditions to get their full consent. So that information needs to come to us instead of the PCA, the certifier. So council needs to see this information prior to giving them outright consent. So schedule 1 are the conditions that have been imposed.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
like they've got external finishes, for example, that
Yes.
they're proposing to do in Schedule 2, but item 1 of Schedule 1 says that they need to, you know, or is that just choosing the paint scheme?
That's choosing the
Okay.
specifically the paint scheme.
Okay, because I thought that's weird.
Yes, there's
Okay, cool.
Thank you,
Answer my
councillor
question. Thank you.
Prieston. Any other questions or clarifications? Councillors, councillor Williams,
I'd like to speak to the motion if I could.
you may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report shows the importance of the role of the local planning panel. I refer to its decision associated with the Fig Tree Park Hunters Hill determination. It's very clear in their determination that it believed that it was not in the public interest and that the information provided in the DA was not sufficient to provide strategic planning context. And it goes on. There's 4 points here, which it makes a clear statement that council's application was not adequate. And council submitted that on 2 occasions, didn't accept the umpire's decision in the first place. And I think it's important to note that the panel in a second time raised that issue. And that comes to the point I raised in the previous item, where transparency should be paramount in council's business. Clearly, in this application, we didn't achieve that. And the local planning panel clearly demonstrate that. And for a council to do something not in the public interest, I think, is something we need to think about as to how we move forward on projects or on activities such as this.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Vergara.
Question.
Yes.
Through Mr. Mayor. It's a genuine question, so I actually know the answer. Ask a question, don't ask it. Is the public interest a legitimate consideration for a planning panel as opposed to normal development control?
Through the general manager or the acting director.
Yeah, yes, through the general manager, through Mayor, councillor, yes. Public interest is a reason where the panel can put a reason that it could be used on. Yeah.
Thanks, councillor. Any other questions? Any other speakers for? Against? Right of reply?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Yes.
It was
councillor.
me that put the motion.
I believe so, yes.
I'd be curious to understand what information was provided to the panel, because point 4, where they say the park is a major public asset within a heritage conservation area, but no assessment of the heritage significance of the park and its features has been provided in preparing the facilities upgrade. I completely reject that. There was a lot of discussion about the heritage significance of this park, and I feel like it was paramount to the DA in the first instance. But anyway, I would just like to reiterate everything that we've previously said 1 million times about this project. I think it's going to be a really good thing for the community, and while I appreciate the expertise on this panel, I think that there are a number of other considerations that are out of the panel's scope of review that go towards this project being beneficial for the community.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Against? Or in favour? Thank you. Councillors, I just want to check, out of items 4.12, development applications determined by the DCU in March 2023, 4.13, DAs determined under delegated authority in March 2023. Item 4.14, report on legal matters, April 2023, 4.15, councillor briefings and workshops, item 4.16, minutes from the Huntersville Local Traffic Committee meeting held 16 March 2023, item 4.17, minutes of meeting of Audit Risk Improvement Committee held 29th March 2023, item 4.18, minutes of Conservation Advisory Panel held 15 March 2023, and item 4.19, minutes of Bushland Management Advisory Committee held 13th of March 2023. Is there any items that you would like to discuss or speak to? Councillor Crassoy?
4.12 for me.
4.12, yes. Any others, councillors?
4.14,
4.14, yes.
4.15,
4.15.
4.16.
Yep.
And
Item 4.17.
4.19.
4.19. Yep. I think we'll just go through them, councillors. I move to item 4.12, development applications determined by the DCU unit in March 2023. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Williams.
Just a
Question, Councillor
through
Crassoy.
you, Mr. Mayor. It talks about the number of increase to 50 children in this childcare centre on Mill Street, but it doesn't say what that increase is from.
I'll ask the acting director to address. Yes.
So this is 40.
So an extra 10 students. Thank you. That was all just.
Yes. Councillors, any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I move to item 4.13, development applications determined under delegated authority March 2023. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.14, report on legal matters, April 2023.
I'm happy to.
Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Williams.
I know it refers to the matters generally with the Land Environment Court, but as I understand it, we've probably got a lot more legal matters than just reported here. So I was wondering why the other agencies or firms that are doing work for us aren't included in this process.
I'll pass through to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the context of the legal report when it was first raised, Councillor Williams, my understanding was that it is for high level matters that is going through the court. Yes, there are ongoing matters that we might seek low level legal advice about a lease, for example, might be about a policy. But as it says here, and the purpose this is pertaining to the Land Environment Court matters, and that's the context of the report.
Councillor Williams.
I'm just wondering, is that a decision of council or one of the general manager? Because in the past, we have been provided with the list of legal matters, and it's important for us to be aware of the broad range of legal matters and the extent of costs associated with it.
General Manager.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Williams, I would have to go back and look at the original motions or resolutions of what was to be captured, because I can't answer that tonight. My understanding, this report, since I've taken over, is pertaining to matters before the Land Environment Court. If there was a previous resolution of council, I'm happy to go back and look at that we report on every single piece of legal information that we receive. I can't answer that tonight. I actually don't know the answer.
You're taken on notice, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yeah, we'll take that on notice. Councillors, any other questions? Comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.15, councillor briefings and workshops. Moved Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Seconded Councillor Preston.
The only reason I
Councillor Williams.
requested that this be included is because on page 183, it's referred to extraordinary meeting of council? Are we holding an extraordinary meeting of council on the 1st of May?
Thank you, councillor Williams, General Manager.
The Gladesville Reserve issue.
Where it was mentioned at the briefing.
It was,
Yeah,
it was,
so,
Manager,
yeah, so, thank you for the question, councillor Williams. So, the request when this was first made, was to give some, brief notes of what was discussed. I do want to stress that it does say the word proposed. It doesn't say that we're going to do it. And I also was going to bring this up in general business that, based on our latest information pertaining to that tender, there will be no need to call that extraordinary meeting. We can deal with that tender at the May meeting.
Councillors, any other questions, clarifications?
Just sorry, Mr. Mayor, just
General Manager.
keeping in mind, councillor Williams, that we had scheduled on that night, an additional, briefing session anyway. So, so that will continue. We just won't need to do a formal extraordinary meeting as part of that timeframe when we've already put that in your diaries.
Thank you, General Manager. Any other questions, clarifications, comments? Councillor Crassoy? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.16, minutes of the Huntsville Local Area Traffic Committee meeting held 16 March 2023. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded. Councillor Williams. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, I have a question in relation to the no stopping in Ernest Street.
Yes, councillor.
Are all those positions relating to situations where people have difficulty backing out of their driveways or manoeuvring room out of
I don't know.
a driveway?
But I can pass to the relevant director. Sorry, Samantha, if you could just come up to the podium. The multitudes online will want to hear what you've got to say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the no stopping for Ernest Street is the residence is the boundary is directly onto is abutting the footway. So when there are cars parked, it is very difficult for them to get out of their driveway. So if there's an emergency situation, an ambulance or so on and so forth, and there's cars parked there, it's almost impossible for them to exit their front gate. So that's the reason for the no stopping.
Right,
Thank you, Director. Yes.
One further question. I take it I didn't have an opportunity to look at this after reading the report, but I take that there still are parking locations on the western side of Ernest Street.
Yes, that's correct.
Good.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This matter has come before council on several previous occasions. I was just wondering, there's no reference here to the matter being referred to the residents. Has there been a
Yes, there was the consultation with no objections or no submissions.
right? Okay.
Councillor Williams, any other questions, councillors? While we've got the director, Councillor Crassoy.
Just again through you, Councillor Sanderson will have a better memory than me, but I vaguely recall some years ago, we brought in a intention to mark no stopping zones with lines. Have we moved back to signs from these pictures, or is that a take on notice question?
That's a take on notice question. Those particular ones are the signs, but I'll come back to you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, director. Any councillors?
Thank you.
Any discussion on this item? Speakers for, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.17, minutes of meeting for the Audit Risk Improvement Committee held 29th of March 2023. Councillor Williams moved, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Crassoy.
Just again to mention, Mr. Mayor, because the ARIC also talk about the fraud and then I'll just scroll straight past. So it might be worth highlighting to them that Civic Risk Mutual are running a course in a few months as well. So because Eric had looked into all of that.
Yes. Yep. So. No, good suggestion, councillor. Any other discussion? This item? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.18 minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel held 15th March 2023. And move Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? For, against, speakers? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Item 4.19 minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee held on 13 March 2023. Move Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, I'll move, Mr. Mayor, but this report does include quite a number of recommendations that have come from the committee. So I'd like to move it, adding that the recommendations of the committee be adopted by council.
Councillor Crassoy, seconded or question?
Well, if Councillor Sanderson's amenable, my suggestion was that the recommendations in the minutes be reported to council for consideration.
Councillor
The
Sanderson?
recommendations are just.
Oh, look, I'll accept that.
Yes. Could I just pull the motion up? Apologies. So moved Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Crassoy, that minutes be received and noted, and that recommendations reported in the business paper.
Just the recommendations
In the
of the
minutes,
committee.
sorry, in the minutes.
The recommendations of the
Be reported to be recommendations of the committee.
Yep. Be reported to council for consideration.
Council for consideration.
Yep. That's what you are trying to say.
Yeah.
Councillors, are you comfortable with that? Yes, yes. So that the minutes be received and noted, and that recommendations for the committee be reported to council for consideration. Any speakers for, against, for?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Crassoy.
Just that there are some really good recommendations in this arising from that meeting and from the committee, but there are some in there that before we just sweep across and adopt, I think the general manager needs to look at, and well, which I'm sure you already have, but that you need to consider and report to council before we just adopt them. Some of them involve changing staff working hours, and what the committee expect to be alerted to, and it just seems a little bit of a ground sweep to adopt all the recommendations without them being fully considered by the general manager in a report to council.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Councillors, any other speakers against, for? If not, right reply. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. There is nil correspondence. Councillors, general business. Councillor Crassoy.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to move a motion of thanks to the council officers, Jackie and Gabby, for the fantastic work that they did with RSL on the Anzac service that was held.
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to suggest that council write to the organisations who supported us in delivering such a fine evening to our community. If you haven't already.
Unfortunately, I did that this morning.
You have already,
yes.
So that includes the schools and
yes, I'll go. Councillor McLaughlin, the police, the SAS, the RSL, the Governor of New South Wales, and Sir Peter Cosgrove. I'm happy to include the schools.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
That's been moved and seconded. Councillors, any discussion? I'll move that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, carried. I will raise an item of general business. I have received and translated a letter in French from the Mayor of Levisnay, inviting me to the Fête de Marguerite for the celebrations this year. I am unable to attend, but I believe that Councillor Quinn is, so I will be writing to the Mayor of Levisnay to tell him that I will not be able to attend, but the council will have someone present at the event, and I've asked Councillor Quinn if I do write a statement that from Hunters Hill Council that we'll be able to have that read out on the day.
Also, I think council will.
Oh, okay. Another two, and we'll have a quorum.
Seventeenth of June.
Of June.
Okay,
18th of June.
I won't be able to attend, but if we've got a couple of councillors there, that's a good thing for the Friendship Pact
And a few citizens as well.
and a few citizens. Well, that's good. Perhaps we can have that reported to council by said councillors. That's my item of general business. Councillors, anything else? Councillor Williams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering why in the business paper we don't have our standing item on the LEP-DCP review. It doesn't appear in the papers, just wondering why that hasn't occurred, because it's an important process and we did resolve to have that dealt with at each council meeting.
General Manager.
Can you just give me one moment, please, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, because Councillor Williams has actually beaten me to the punch here anyway. So.
Okay. Councillors, any other items of general business while we get this relevant staff member online? No?
No, so, Sean, can you just confirm whether Kieran can come back on the line?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm
Yeah.
texting him.
So Councillor Williams, I was actually going to raise this myself in general business, so thank you for doing so. I have an apology to make of sorts. When we formulated the agenda for the meeting, the report had been written, and somehow, which I don't know yet because I've got to make an inquiry with the printer, but somehow in that file transfer, that report did not appear within the agenda. It was there, but for some reason there has been let's call it a technical glitch, why that report didn't publish. So the report was written. I am happy to email that around to the councillors in good faith tomorrow and also get an explanation from the printers what happened. But at the same time too, if we can get Kieran back on the line, he can give, with your permission, Mr. Mayor and councillors, just to give a verbal update of where we're at. So my apologies.
He was on there.
The report was
5 minutes
written.
ago.
I can say, without taking any words out of Kieran's mouth, that there's no real significant update other than he has continued to work on the scoping report. But I'll let him explain that.
I do also note that we do have, it has been made live on the council projects page, the LEP-DCP review, with timelines and other relevant information that the public can access, which.
Have you been able to get it?
Just give him a call off text.
Okay. Okay.
Councillors, no other items of general business?
No, Mr. Mayor, but if we're just filling time,
Yes.
I'll just go back to my comment about Anzac Day.
Yes.
Because it's tomorrow, as we know, and it's such a special occasion on the Hunters Hill calendar. And I think the Governor spoke so beautifully, as did Cosgrove. But on the day, on the evening, it's just such a special time to start down at the RSL. And I know that some had to be tied up at this end, but for those of us who got to march along the street, I think you'll agree that it's quite a stirring event, and events that stir awe are essential in that part of our remembering. And I would like to encourage councillors and council to engage more richly. I know we already do, but more richly with All Saints and with the RSL at that end of the Anzac service on Anzac Eve, because I've gone for years as a resident and as a councillor, and it's so important to our community that we do that with them. It was also interesting, I'm just feeling time here. It was also interesting to note Reverend Michael Armstrong asked us all to march, and I questioned that because someone had pointed out to me that that was not protocol, and Reverend Armstrong assured me that the RSL had confirmed the order of how the march proceeds, and that yes, residents and community groups are encouraged to join in at the back of the march once the formal group has passed. And so it was quite rousing to hear everyone lining the streets and clapping, and then following in behind our vets as they walked along the street. Rod Stewart was really touched by
Mm.
council support, and he'd like to see it promoted to the community. More that community are welcome to attend. Also, Peter Astridge at the Gladesville RSL sub-branch Sunday Anzac service said he would really love to see his councillors attending that service next year. He was so proud, and I was so proud of him as a councillor. He put so much work into the event, and it was also well attended because of COVID. They haven't had it for a few years. It was really well attended. We all sat and had a beer together afterwards, morning tea. Jerome Axel attended, and MP Anthony Roberts was the keynote speaker, and it was also a very special event. So I just wanted to mention that to council.
Thank you, councillor Crassoy. Councillor Williams.
In that vein, Mr Mayor, I'd like to bring to council's attention, if they don't know, that the All Saints and Reverend Armstrong is holding a dawn service tomorrow at 6 p.m. down at All Saints.
PM or
It'd be good at 6 a.m.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah, 6 a.m.
Yes.
Councillor Williams, he did
Everybody-
send
Yeah.
an email invitation to all the councillors, yeah.
Yeah, but it's worth
Yeah.
highlighting and noting.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have not been able to raise our strategic planner. So can I just reiterate what I said before? The way Info Council works, which is our computer program to essentially run the reports. No report can go in unless I approve it, and I categorically approve the report. But for some reason, there's been a glitch why it has not appeared in the agenda. So it's a technical glitch. I can't explain tonight what's happened, but what I can say is that report was written as required. In good faith, I will email that report to councillors post the meeting. But I also can say that there's no real significant update because the strategic planner is continuing to working on the scoping report. And I will confirm with the director, but it is my understanding that the most recent up-to-date information is sitting on the project page on our website. Yeah, so apologies, not apology, councillors.
Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just off that,
just move
I've had
on
a
now.
few people in the community asking some questions about the LEP DCP review. Some people who were at the town hall meeting, but they struggled to hear and they couldn't see the screen and pointers and so on. So there's obviously there were some takeaway notes from that meeting, I'm sure. But is there? I'm just looking at it on the website now. Is there like people who don't necessarily have feedback or comment or a submission to make, they just have a question because they want to understand it a little bit better. Is there an email address that we could add to the site that people could just send questions to?
General Manager.
Perhaps. I won't ask that. I'll just offer it as a suggestion and you can take it on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim. Councillors, thank you for a very robust general business session. Given that, is there any other items of general business? If not, I will move to item 7.1, questions without notice, response to council questions at the conclusion of the previous council meeting. Councillor Williams, you've had a number of items in there that have had questions raised and answered. Any other questions without notice that you'd like to pass up to the front, or questions without notice that you have, Councillor Williams?
In relation to that matter, I don't think I have been answered. It says that I'll be provided with a verbal response. I think it's important for transparency reasons that if a question's asked in this section of the business paper, that there's a formal response provided so that residents can see what answers. I'm not clear as to what the results of these things are. And certainly I think residents that these issues affect would be interested in hearing it as well.
Thank you, councillor. Any other questions without notice to be handed to the front?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor-
just through you,
General Manager.
just for clarity here, it's fully the intention this evening for as it's outlined in the paper, for the respective directors to come up and address those questions. That's the explanations to Councillor Williams's questions will be responded to orally. Yes.
This evening.
Absolutely, that's how it's written in the papers,
All right.
Mr Mayor.
Question one, outside the main gate of the school at Pittwater Road is a retaining wall that needs to repair and a trip hazard adjacent to the footpath removed. Will council be repairing this significant trip hazard? Director of Infrastructure and Environmental Sustainability.
So just through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify, the Director of Infrastructure will be responding to Councillor Williams' questions 1, 2 and 3.
Yep.
And we can do that in block.
Yes.
And then Councillor Williams' question 4, the Director of Community and Customer Services will be answering. Thank you, Samantha.
Okay. The first question without notice, I'll read out the question. Outside the main gate to the school on Pittwater Road is a retaining wall that needs repair and a trip hazard adjacent to the footpath removed. Will council be repairing this significant trip hazard? What we've since receiving this, we've been on site and had a look. We put in a bollard. We can see what you mean by the trip hazard because there's a divot. The retaining wall is there to retain the footway. So we've since sourced and repaired those papers on that retaining wall.
Thank you. And question 2.
Question 2 is accessibility issues on the bus stop of Park and High Streets. So the question is, following the council's release of the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, a resident in the area using a motorised wheelchair has raised concerns as to access to bus stops at the corner of Park and High Streets, both in the west and eastbound locations, Barron's Crescent near Myers Avenue and Barron's Crescent near Garza Street. This stop has recently been renovated by the council, but it still does not meet accessibility standards for wheelchair access. Council staff have investigated that, and we are working on a solution. We're going to work with Sydney buses. There are a couple, particularly on the corner of Park and High, that we think the bus stop could be relocated to make it more accessible and easy to make an accessible bus stop. And the footway and the bus stop adjacent to Garda, we'll look at making that more accessible also. So these works will have been budgeted in our 23-24 program, and prior to that, we will be commissioning a report on the design for those. So we'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Director. And question 3.
Question 3 is, it has been brought to my attention by a resident that the car park adjacent to Victoria Road bus stop, although the signage has been changed, it still leaves a 3-hour zone that does not allow enough time for residents to use it and go to the city and return. It has been requested that a 3-hour limit be extended to 4 hours. We've looked into this matter, and in June 21, Council resolved to change the upper car park to 3P. And in June 2022, this matter was revisited by the Traffic Committee, and Council then resolved to change the parking on the southern end to be unrestricted and retain the 3P. We've looked at our customer service inquiries. We haven't received any complaints through that. However, we've taken that on notice, and we are going to monitor it. And should there be any issues raised, we'll take that back to Traffic Committee for further consideration.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you. Just on that, because it might have been before you started with this, I raised it with the, I think it was acting general manager, and when they did, no, it must have been when they did take away the restricted parking on one side, yes, and they looked at it, even though spots aren't full, so they've kind of said, well, what? At the other side way when the unrestricted side's already not full.
Yes, that's the observation made, but if it's starting to become an issue, we'll keep monitoring and see how it goes.
Well, the question wasn't to remove that remaining 3 hours, but the question was that they're being extended to 4 hours because
we'll just park over there where it's unlimited.
Councillors, we have had a response, and if we want to make specific recommendations, we can go through the local area traffic committee. Director, any other questions of the Director? Thank you. Thank you, Samantha. Question 4. is to be provided by the Director of Community and Customer Service. Thank you.
Thank you,
Annie.
Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for your question. Question 4. The Bushland Management Advisory Committee, of which I actually sat in on that meeting, so very timely and worth doing, obviously, has requested council take action to remove Spanish moss from the municipality's trees. Currently, the problem is at a tipping point with numerous street trees and private vegetation infected. Council needs to develop a strategy for its removal before it escalates to a point where our tree canopy in particular is overwhelmed. The community would not want our trees and reserves covered to the extent of the image taken in Ryde. Having seen the image in Ryde, that particular tree that Councillor Williams provided was certainly overrun with Spanish moss. There's a number of trees in Ryde, and our neighbour in Canada Bay have had a similar problem. In Canada Bay, they've just received a quote for 100 trees to be removed, have Spanish moss removed from them. The cost is about $135,000 for that, which involves a cherry picker for each tree and 2 people pulling the moss off manually. What we would like to do is bring your report back to the June meeting. That will give us enough time to have a quick look at an audit of our current trees that are infected, both publicly and privately, just to see what the extent is. And then obviously from there, we could get an indication of cost. So once again, just to reiterate, we'd like to bring a report back to you to the June meeting.
This is just a private thing, but private view. I love the Spanish moss. I think it's great.
Well, it's a shame, Mr Mayor, the photograph is not here because
I'm sure, but as I said, Councillor Williams, it's a private view, but I think that Spanish moss is quite charming. Thank you, Director. Any other questions? If not, then I will move on to the Council Committee of the Whole. Councillor Quinn moved, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not, we'll move. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again, I'll also do that again. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. We'll have to close off the live stream and exclude the public from the meeting.